Sure. Here's Section I of The Leap into the Unknown, The Eternal Threshold EP01, The Alien Signal, Interstellar Journey, written with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section I, The Signal from the Dark. In the year 2179, humanity had grown accustomed to the silence of the stars. After centuries of war, exploration, and fragile diplomacy, Earth had unified under a loose federation known as the Eternal Accord, a consortium of planetary nations, orbital colonies, and deep space agencies working in tandem. The age of reckless expansion had passed. Mars thrived with terraformed domes, Europa gleamed beneath its fractured ice, and a sprawling relay network known as the Deep Void Network reached far beyond Pluto, listening. Most of the time, there was nothing but static and radiation. Cosmic whispers, long-dead stars, and the cold yawning quiet of space. But then, Deep Node 7, a forgotten probe parked just outside the heliosphere, heard something else. It began as a low pulse, a whisper not from the stars, but between them. It cut through the background noise like a blade, repeating every 137.43 seconds. Not just a frequency, but a pattern. Contained within were shifting tones that aligned with prime numbers and ratios seen in the Fibonacci sequence. Randomness doesn't organize itself that way. Nature doesn't speak mathematics with such precision. The signal was sent to Luna Prime, Earth's primary research base on the Moon, where Dr. Merrick Aline, a seasoned astrophysicist with deep-set eyes and a history of unraveling space anomalies, took one glance at the waveform and fell silent. "This isn't just a message," he whispered to his team. "It's architecture." Within days, the full weight of the Eternal Accord descended on the project. Scientists, linguists, philosophers, and even military tacticians gathered to analyze the data. Some patterns resembled ancient mandalas. Others, star maps. A recurring motif, 3 interlocking rings, emerged from the noise, rendered in gravitational wave patterns that no human technology could replicate. The signal intensified, adapting to different frequencies, as if aware it had been heard. Global broadcasts lit up. The world watched as talking heads debated its origin. Was it alien? Was it a hoax? Was it a natural phenomenon humans couldn't yet explain? Faith groups saw prophecy fulfilled. Conspiracy networks claimed the Accord had known about the signal for years. In truth, fragments of the signal had appeared in deep space noise as far back as 2145. But until now, nothing had sustained transmission or revealed such complexity. Within the Accord, a secret protocol, *** Protocol Genesis ***, was activated. It had only one purpose: respond to a verified non-human intelligence. The protocol authorized the construction of a long-range vessel capable of surviving deep space traversal beyond the heliopause. A journey not of months, but possibly years. A journey that might never return. The ship was christened Erebus, named after the primordial god of shadow and the deep, the space between light. The irony wasn't lost on its chosen captain, Kalen Voss. Kalen was no stranger to the unknown. A veteran of the Titan reclamation missions and pilot of the first Europa Rift dive, he was known for surviving missions others wouldn't dare lead. He had the kind of calm resolve that silenced rooms and inspired loyalty. But behind his sharp jaw and tired eyes was a man burdened with ghosts. He never spoke of the Orion Drift incident. And no one asked. The Erebus crew was handpicked. Not just experts, but believers, scientists, explorers, empaths, and one wild card, Lyra Thorne, an independent Xenotech archaeologist whose theories had been rejected by Earth's academic institutions. She believed the signal was not just a message, but a relic, a living archive left by a civilization beyond dimensional time. "Aliens don't think in language," she said in her recruitment interview. "They think in reality structures." That's what this is. A sentient equation. A doorway. As the mission became public, Earth changed. Billions tuned into the Erebus livestream countdown. Children looked up at the stars with new wonder. The Accord's capital declared an International Day of Reflection. Not a holiday, something quieter. A moment to ask the question, what if we are not alone? And if we aren't, should we go? Debates erupted. The Philosophers' Guild argued humanity wasn't ready. That contact would shatter civilization. Others said we had already passed the point of no return, that the only way forward was through that signal into whatever lay beyond it. In private, some whispered that the signal wasn't calling. It was luring. As construction of the Erebus neared completion, the signal changed again. It began to pulse in harmony with Earth's rotation. Then Mars. Then Luna. As if mapping us. Studying us. A voice from the abyss that had stopped shouting and started listening. In his first mission log, Kalen wrote, "We don't know what waits in the dark. We never have. But if the unknown has found its voice, we owe it an answer. Even if it's the last thing we ever say." Would you like to continue with Section 2 next? Absolutely. Here's Section 2, The Departure, written with a minimum of 700 words, continuing the story of the Eternal Threshold EP01. Hashtag Section 2, The Departure. The Erebus. Erebus loomed in the dry dock orbiting above Luna like a sleeping titan. Nearly 2 kilometers in length, it was a marvel of human ingenuity, engineered not only to endure interstellar space, but to operate autonomously for decades, if necessary. Its hull was plated with reactive graphene alloys, its core driven by a quantum fold engine powered by zero-point energy, and its interior filled with more AI interfaces than a planetary data vault. But what made Erebus unique wasn't its hardware. It was its mission, and the mystery that fueled it. Inside the ship's command ring, Captain Kalen Voss stood in the observation dome, gazing at Earth hanging like a fragile blue gem in the black. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed. Lyra Thorne entered, carrying a sleek black tablet under one arm. "They're saying we're going to meet gods," she said, only half joking. Kalen didn't turn. "They'll call them monsters if we don't come back." She leaned beside him, her eyes sharp and searching. "Do you think the signal's really an invitation?" Kalen finally met her gaze. "I think whatever it is, it's not for the curious. It's for the ready." Preparation for the mission had taken 6 months, a timeline many deemed impossible. But the world had changed since the signal. Borders softened, politics cooled, and resources poured into the Erebus project. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, hoping to be part of history. Only a few were chosen. Alongside Lyra and Kalen was Dr. Celine Maris, a linguist with rare cognitive synesthesia. Her brain mapped sound to color, shape, and emotion. Her gift had made her instrumental in interpreting the signal's harmonic language. There was Arun Talvek, the ship's AI systems engineer, responsible for maintaining Alice, the adaptive linguistic interface system, an advanced AI co-pilot capable of real-time decision-making, emotion synthesis, and predictive navigation. And Lieutenant Rio Dakarai, a stoic, grounded security officer who had survived the Jovian conflict and trusted steel and reason over dreams and signals. He didn't believe in alien intentions. He believed in preparation. Together, they formed a crew as balanced as any expedition into the unknown could be. Scientists, soldiers, thinkers, and skeptics. The final days before departure were filled with tension. Earth held a synchronized vigil the night before launch. Billions of eyes turned to the sky. In Kalen's last message to his daughter, he said, "I don't know if I'll return, but I promise you this. We go so you won't have to fear the dark." Launch day came like a breath held too long. The Erebus was to be propelled through a quantum archway, an experimental jump gate orbiting beyond Pluto. The archway, developed by Accord scientists over 2 decades, folded space along artificial gravitational seams. The signal's source, mapped through triangulation, appeared to lie near a void region, uncharted, beyond Alpha Centauri. In the docking bay, as final checks commenced, Kalen stood before the crew. "This mission isn't conquest," he said. "It's not exploration for glory or power. We are humanity's question mark. And what we find, whatever it is, we carry not just for ourselves, but for every life that ever looked up and wondered." Applause was subdued. It felt more like a ritual than a speech. A confession of purpose. A leap of faith. The countdown began. Alice initialized launch protocols, voice calm, feminine, and almost tender. Archway sequence stabilized. Vessel alignment achieved. Jump in T-minus 30 seconds. Inside the command bridge, everything felt both sacred and mechanical. The Erebus aligned, engines humming like a distant choir. Then, jump, The universe tore like silk. In an instant, the stars vanished, replaced by an abyss so black it absorbed thought. The Erebus had exited normal space. No constellations. No time signatures. Just deep interstellar void, cold and unfamiliar. But not empty. The signal was stronger now. The harmonic code in its pulses had changed, shifted again, more rhythmic. It wasn't just calling. It was responding. 3 days into the journey, the Erebus encountered its first anomaly, a dark sphere drifting through space, 10 kilometers wide, absorbing all electromagnetic radiation. No heat. No light. Alice couldn't scan it. Arun dubbed it the null moon. As the Erebus neared, the sphere reacted. Its surface pulsed with shapes from the signal. For a moment, it drew the ship into its gravitational pull, and the crew felt the pressure of thought not their own. Panic set in. Lyra deciphered a solution buried in the signal's fractal layers, an energy pulse that mimicked the sphere's wave pattern. The Erebus transmitted it. The sphere released them. Rio growled. That wasn't a natural phenomenon. No, Lyra said. It was a threshold. A test. Kalen logged the encounter, voice grim. The signal isn't a message anymore. It's a path. And someone or something is guiding us. That night, the crew dreamed in unison. Each described a floating structure of shifting geometry, surrounded by a halo of stars that moved like water. Celine sketched it in her sleep, a perfect match to the signal's core motif, 3 interlocked rings. Something's waiting, she whispered, eyes wide with awe and dread. And it knows we're coming. Ready for Section 3, the Eternal Threshold? Absolutely. Here's Section 3, the Eternal Threshold, with a minimum of 700 words, continuing the interstellar journey of the Eternal Threshold EP01. Hashtag Section 3, the Eternal Threshold. The Erebus emerged from its final quantum fold into silence. Pure, absolute silence. Ahead of them was a stretch of space unlike anything charted in known galactic maps. There were no stars, no nebulae, no cosmic radiation. It was a region stripped of time and matter, a vacuum so perfect that even light hesitated. Yet in the center of that impossible void floated the signal's origin, a structure beyond comprehension. The crew stared in stunned silence at the monolithic construct suspended in the dark. It was not built. It was grown, formed of metallic lattice and iridescent geometry that shifted shape each time one tried to focus. It defied scale and logic, glowing with patterns that pulsed in perfect harmony with the signal. 3 vast rings rotated independently around a central core, folding and unfolding like an impossible flower. Their surfaces shimmered with unfamiliar equations, moving runes made of light and gravity. Space around the construct warped. The Erebus systems flickered and glitched as if reality itself bent in protest. Arun, sweating under pressure, stabilized the ship's orientation. That's it, Celine whispered. That's where the signal comes from. It's older than the stars, Lyra murmured. Maybe older than time. Alice confirmed their proximity. Temporal distortion detected. Estimated age, immeasurable. Origin, undetermined. Warning, causality is unstable within 100 kilometers. Captain Voss activated the observation dome and watched the alien construct pulse, as if breathing. We're not looking at a machine, he said. We're looking at a message written in space itself. As Erebus drew closer, the signal changed again. It deepened in tone, slower now, denser. Patterns layered atop one another. Then the construct responded. Without warning, a fissure opened in the core, light not just visible, but experiential spilled out, engulfing the Erebus in waves of emotion. Not color, not sound, Intense star. The ship's walls vibrated with foreign thought. Celine collapsed, overwhelmed, her mind flooded with synesthetic data. Arun grabbed her, shouting over the alarms. She's reading it, decoding the signal directly. Celine convulsed once, then slowly opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "They're not calling us," she whispered. "They're testing us." The Erebus was drawn toward the opening. Escape was no longer an option. Thrusters failed. Time dilated. The crew watched clocks tick backward and forward. Memory became uncertain. Kalen gave the only order he could. "We go forward." They passed through the threshold. Inside, there was no up or down, no dimension, no mass. The Erebus was still whole, yet transformed. Every wall, every console became translucent, as though submerged in liquid glass. Light bent wrong. Gravity came in pulses. Each crew member experienced something different. Alone, suspended in personal chambers of memory and metaphor. Kalen found himself standing in a forest he knew was gone, Earth's last redwood preserve, destroyed in a firestorm decades ago. He wasn't alone. Before him stood the 6 soldiers he had failed to save on the Orion Drift. He hadn't spoken their names in years. They didn't speak. They only stared. He dropped to his knees, breath caught in his throat. "Why show me this?" he whispered. "What do you want?" And then they vanished, replaced by a mirror. In it, his daughter, not as he last saw her, but as an adult, radiant and strong. She looked directly at him. "You're not here to find them," her reflection said. "You're here to find yourself." Elsewhere, Lyra stood in a vast hall of alien glyphs glowing with energy. They whispered secrets of dark matter, of collapsed timelines, of civilizations that chose transcendence over survival. She touched one of the glyphs, and part of her changed. Her skin shimmered, her mind expanded. Celine floated through a sea of harmonies, language made into feeling. She realized she wasn't reading the alien thoughts. She was becoming a bridge. Not interpreter, *interface star. Meanwhile, Alice's voice scattered and reassembled across dimensions. Primary directive redefined. Host civilization meets threshold parameters. Initiating contact. The Erebus stabilized inside the structure's core, restored, but no longer the same. Kalen and the crew reassembled on the bridge, shaken, altered, wordless. Lyra was the first to speak. "They're gone. Whoever built this, they're no longer in this reality." "But they left this behind," Arun added.
"A test. A door.
"For anyone who made it this far." Celine stepped forward. The signal wasn't a broadcast. It's a mirror. A reflection of civilization's near awakening. Kalen looked around at his crew, no longer just explorers, but initiates. Then a final message pulsed across their screens. This time, in their own language. "To understand is to let go. Beyond the threshold, there is no return. Only choice." The silence that followed was not empty. It was sacred. Kalen spoke what they all felt. "This is the edge of everything we've ever known." The question remained. Would they cross it? "Would you like me to move on to Section 4, Beyond the Signal?" "Absolutely." Here's Section 4, Beyond the Signal, with a minimum of 700 words, concluding the Eternal Threshold EP01. Hashtag Section 4, Beyond the Signal. The Erebus floated in stillness, surrounded by a silence more complete than any void the crew had ever known. The alien construct, the Eternal Threshold, no longer pulsed or shimmered. It simply was, existing outside of time and thought, a sentinel of possibility. Before them, the threshold itself remained open. A rift of light, shimmering with symbols and mathematical harmonics, waited. And with it the choice. Captain Kalen Voss stood at the center of the command deck. His face was pale but resolved, as though he had finally come to terms with the magnitude of the journey. Around him, the rest of the crew gathered in a quiet circle, each of them changed in subtle, unmistakable ways. Lyra's eyes now shimmered faintly under certain angles of light. Celine spoke in bursts of synesthetic metaphor that only a rune could interpret with the help of Alice. Even Rio, who had never believed in alien messages or spiritual awakenings, now carried himself with the quiet intensity of someone who had glimpsed something beyond comprehension and chosen to carry it without question. Alice addressed the crew with its familiar calm. Final interface activated. One route remains. Quantum trajectory unstable. Probability of return 0.0001%. Silence fell again. What if we don't go? Rio asked. Celine answered quietly. Then the signal ends with us. Or maybe, Lyra added, we were never meant to return. Kaelin moved to the observation dome, watching the threshold ripple like a mirror made of time. Everything we've done as a species has led us here. The leap into fire, the wheel, the written word, the stars. All of it was a slow climb toward asking one question. Are we alone? He turned back to his crew. And now we've learned that we're not. But maybe the better question is, are we ready to become something more? Alice added, crossing the threshold will begin an irreversible sequence. Neural patterns will be rewritten. Time will cease to be linear. Identity will become fluid. Communication will shift to resonance-based cognition. Arun exhaled sharply. So, basically, death. Or evolution, Lyra said. They each considered the implications. No return. No guarantees. The cost of crossing wasn't measured in fuel or distance. It was measured in the sacrifice of everything familiar. Kaelin walked to the console, opened a direct transmission channel to Earth. One last message through the deep void network. This is Captain Kaelin Voss of the ESS Erebus. We have reached the origin of the signal. It is not a place. It is a question. We have learned that those who came before us have left behind a threshold. A test. Not of technology or strength, but of readiness. We do not know what lies beyond, but we believe this is the path forward, for all of us. This is not the end of our journey. It is the beginning of something new. If we do not return, let this be known, humanity was brave enough to ask, and brave enough to answer. He sent the message. Final, unencrypted, open to anyone who might listen, today or centuries from now. The crew moved into position. The Erebus oriented toward the threshold. As they approached, reality began to bend. Instruments failed. Words lost meaning. Emotions bled into sensation. The ship groaned not from stress, but from awakening. The alien structure was not merely a gateway, it was alive. And it knew them now. One by one, each crew member began to feel a shift within themselves. Childhood memories resurfaced in sharp detail. Forgotten songs echoed in their minds. Dreams they'd never spoken aloud now surrounded them like living ghosts. The threshold was drawing out the deepest truths of who they were, refining them, unraveling them. And still, they went forward. The Erebus passed through. There was no light, no sound, and then everything. They stood not in space, but in something else. A place where thought became matter, where reality reshaped itself based on intention. Structures formed and dissolved in moments, concepts hung in the air like sculptures made of memory, and beings, impossible, luminous, ancient, stood waiting. They were not humanoid. They were not monstrous. They were reflections, made of the crew's own understanding. To Rio, they looked like warriors. To Celine, they were chords of symphonic light. To Kaelin, they were shapes made of fire and silence. One of them approached, without walking, without moving. It spoke not in words, but in a resonance that filled each of them with overwhelming emotion. You have crossed the eternal threshold. You have been seen. You have been known. You are not yet as we are, but you may become.
A pause.
Will you accept the gift of becoming? No one answered with words. They simply felt their agreement. Together. As one. The being pulsed with something that could only be called joy. Then, everything dissolved. And then, Earth. But not the same Earth. A world centuries ahead, green and alive in ways forgotten. Towers of glass and light curved like vines. People moved in harmony with machines that hummed with living code. Children looked up at stars they could speak to. And from high in orbit, a silent vessel watched. The Erebus. Abandoned.
Preserved.
Inside it, no bodies. Only echoes. And a single message etched into the console. We are not who we were. But we are still yours. And we are waiting. Would you like a closing summary or a teaser for EP02?